Exxaro Resources reported a slight rise in full-year earnings, helped by a strong performance in its coal business. Sipho Nkosi, the CEO of Exxaro, joins us in studio for more. Now, off air a minute ago, you questioned why Clive here is not buying Sanlam. It was an out-and-out no-go area for you. Clive, can you please answer Mr. Sipho Nkosi?
They've reached saturation, and I don't think there's any other product or any innovative ways that they can go beyond the roof. So for me, the younger guys are going to take advantage of that, and I think that they've reached their time clock, unfortunately.
I will convey that one to Johan.
Well, there we go, Clive. You are in trouble, sir. Lindsay, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I do want to jump in here, and I'm going to go straight to the outlook statement. I learnt this from David Shapiro, who's on this show regularly, Sipho, and he says, if you haven't got time to go through all the reams and reams of results, you have a look at the outlook statement. And given the fact that I was in traffic for 2 hours today instead of 35 minutes, I look at your outlook statement, and it says here, in the domestic market, demand for steam and metallurgical coal is expected to be stable in 2014. That's fine. Demand for power station coal from Eskom is, however, expected to be weaker than in 2013 due to the current high level of coal stock days at Eskom power stations. Anyone reading that's been in the blackouts today will say that's a little bit insulting. I mean, it's unfair, but you have to explain what's gone on, because
but how can it be insulting? It's because, I mean, Eskom has got sufficient coal on stockpile, because we've been trying very hard to provide the coal, and the coal is there now. It's sitting. The only problem that they are citing is the fact that that coal is now wet, and that's where the problem is. But otherwise, things are fine.
Bruce?
I did notice in their comment as well, they said that they lost 3 generating units, Kendall. So, I mean, is that not part of the problem as well? So you've got wet coal, generating units, and one of my concerns as well is the fleet. You know, even if we look at Medupi and Kuseli coming online, the balance of our fleet, the very, very old power stations, these are going to be giving technically more and more problems. Now, what I was more interested in a venture that Exxaro is going into is obviously power production itself. So if we look at that, how far down the line are you? Where are you going to take that to, and what sort of generating capacity are you considering bringing online?
Well, for now, we're looking at developing a power station, an IPP, in Waterberg, and we call the mine Tavametsi. So that mine will produce the coal, and that coal will go to this power station. We'll start with 600 megawatts, and then it will grow. It can be bigger than that one, because the coal that's available there can supply quite a lot.
Clive?
Yeah, I hope this Tavametsi is not going to wet the coals as well and create more problems. But this is my question to you, Sipho, is the fact that, you know, we've gone through this. You talk about green energy, for example. What kind of a tailoring does that have? What does it hold a hindrance for you as a supplier of coal when it comes to green energy and the new ways and the innovative ways of creating energy?
Not at all. We've always said that each country needs to have a good balance in terms of the energy mix. You have to have nuclear, you have to have renewables, you have to have coal, you have to have gas, and so forth, because that is very important. It just depends on how far you go with that one. If you look at the renewables, there's lots of build that is taking place right now. And I am convinced that if you start looking at the next 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, a lot of them will be coming on stream. We've got a company that we've JV'd with Tata to build called Synergy. And we've got 2 projects that we're building, and those are wind projects. And we're building those, and the construction starts this year. And in the next 18 to 2 months to 2 years, those will be delivered. And they will bring more relief into the system.
Okay. One thing we haven't done, Sipho, is gone through your results, and I'm going to continue that theme now, because I want to talk about the bigger picture for coal. If there was a viable liquid futures market in coal, what would people be doing at the moment? Would they be going short? Because it wasn't so long ago that one of the largest diversified resources companies in the world decided to move away from coal. Does this mean that coal is now a dying industry? Is it a dying commodity? Is it something that in the future you'll have your great-grandchildren on your knee and they'll say, Uncle Sipho, what was coal?
Well, I hope I would be there, and I'll explain to my great-grandkids what coal did. But for this country, we still did coal, and we're going to have coal for many, many years to come. If you look at the scenario, for instance, that we have in the country, even though we bring in renewables, even if we brought in nuclear, but coal will still remain key in the mix. There's lots of work that is going on shale gas, for instance. There's lots of work that is going on exploration, gas exploration around the country. But all of that will never take coal away at this time. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, I think things would change anyhow, because the world would have changed, that's for sure.
What are you saying to shareholders right now who are keen on the Exxaro story, but who haven't deployed their cash?
I just say buy.
And the rationale for that
the rationale is that, firstly, you know, I hear what people say. Eskom still remains a good business for us, and the results are there to show. Good business for us. The export market, even though the prices have gone down, still remains very robust. We used to supply over 90% of South African coals to Europe. We've swung that one now to the Far East. And the demand is there. The numbers are there. The only problem is that, of course, with the coming in of more supplies into the system, because coal is in abundance, then the prices are depressed. But the truth of the matter is, over a period of time, coal will be a good asset to hold.
Do you see that as a buy signal, Mr. Bruce Main? Are you taking Mr. Nkosi at his word? You're convinced?
Look, I certainly don't think coal's disappearing off the landmark in the shorter term. Longer term, yes, I would agree. I think if we look at the US, which are probably at the forefront of really ramping up gas production and fracking, I think we've seen how quickly that market does change. So yes, I guess that is a concern ultimately, but probably far longer. One of the other issues that I did see that was noted was the iron ore assets that the production plant that you're building in the Congo. You were talking about some rail important infrastructural bottlenecks. If you just give us a little bit more color on that.
Well, remember, it is important because we're dealing in bulk products. Mining is critical. Railing that product and then exporting it to the end user, I think is very critical. In the case of Mayoko, what we have is that we've got a very good resource that is sitting there. We've got an old line that is sitting there that needs some refurbishment. And we've got a port called Pointe-Noire, which really is a functioning port, but it's a clean port in trade terms. But it's important, therefore, that all those things work together so that we're able to deliver your product. So we have had signed a convention, mining convention with the Congolese government. We've signed an MOU on the rail. We've signed an MOU on the port. So what that means is that within this month, the end of March, we said that we will have all those agreements concluded. And at that point, we will be able then to finalize the bankable feasibility study that we're doing and give the market the right numbers insofar as what would be our cash cost on that project.
Final question, Clive, and you have the honors.
Yeah, you know.
Is he supposed to be asking me?
Yeah.
Well,
I better be careful. I better be careful. I will be. I'll tread my marks very well. But there's an interesting story in the emerging markets, for example, about diversifying your business and into these particular countries. Do you find that there's a challenge? Let's talk about just keeping it on the BRICS side of things. Do you find challenges in that area? And what is your biggest challenge? And how are you planning to actually go opposed that and create a healthy business?
You've mentioned BRICS.
Yeah.
The world has moved, and there was this exciting commodity boom because of one of the countries in BRICS, and that's China.
Yeah.
So they do well. India is one of those that are doing well. Brazil is not doing too badly, and so is South Africa for that matter, insofar as that one is concerned. But you know, when you go to an emerging market, there are things that are critical, and one of them is the infrastructure. And by and large, you don't find good infrastructure or existing infrastructure, and therefore the cost of developing a project has to consider the mine, has to consider the development of the infrastructure, and therefore it costs you quite a lot. Yeah. So it still is a challenge. Yeah. But I mean, there are developed countries that still suffer from that as well.
Fantastic.
Sipho, just a final one for me. We've been sort of semi-serious and semi-facetious about the coal industry, but more seriously, the development of Exxaro in the future. Are you looking to embellish your portfolio, improve your portfolio, and if so, how are you going to do that?
Well, as I said, I mean, we've been spending a lot of time this year looking at our portfolio. You will notice, and we made some announcements that some of the mines we've sold, and some of the mines will be closing down. And we're building new mines as replacement. We're looking at new opportunities to beef up that business so that we continue supplying the domestic market as well as export. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing really a very strong business, but it's going to take time to get into that. I mean, to develop a business, it's no longer straightforward because all the licenses that you're going to get sometimes tend to take a lot longer. So you could be ready on the mining side, but if your licenses are not there to start mining, your water licenses and all those that you have to deal with, that becomes a bit of a challenge.